This is a conversation I had with a guy called SpaceLogic. He's a theist who believes that objective morality exists, and I don't. But by the end of the conversation, he kind of came. Well, actually, no, it's YouTube, right? Okay, sorry. We had a conversation, and you won't believe what happened next. Transition!
So you're saying that even like me, like as a Christian, I don't have objective morality?
I honestly don't think so. But now, look, if you can let, I've had this discussion a number of times, and it has occurred to me that maybe part of the problem is that my idea of what objective morality is different from other people. So, when you use that phrase, what do you mean by objective morality?
I mean that we know as I guess it's hard, like trying to explain it to you, but like as a religious person, God tells us, reveals to us what's right and wrong.
Okay, but I don't feel like, well, if that was true, then how do you account for so many different people getting so many different answers to the same questions of morality? So many believers, so many theists, so many people that
Christians,
believe in God. How do they all come to different answers of what correct morality is?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is definitely that people just don't interpret things correctly. They don't read. They don't actually, understand like parts of the Bible.
So you're saying that, okay, so there is someone who has who has access to the correct answers. There is somebody who can read things, research things, understand things such that they correctly know what God's view on morality is.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't say it like it's like super hard. I'm kind of confused what you mean by the like different interpretations. So if when God says thou shalt not kill, are people saying, oh well,
Is homosexuality moral?
being gay? Okay, so this is actually a good question. So first of all, being gay, your sexual orientation is not a sin.
Okay.
But
Are
but
like having a relation. Oh, sorry. No, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. So orientation, sexual orientation is not a sin because it's not something we entirely choose, right? That doesn't say that in the Bible, but it does say that sexual immorality, so man having sex with another man or woman having sex with another woman is a
Where does it say that? Actually, where does it say that woman having sex with
woman.
a
Well,
woman?
you're right. It doesn't say woman with another woman. That's right.
Ah,
Yeah.
so male sex acts are sin. Okay. So you have this conclusion. Are your points of view in this the objective morality?
I mean, I would say so.
You're right. You would say so. Now, there are plenty of religious people who disagree with you. There are plenty of religious people who would
Of
say,
course.
no, in fact, the interpretation of the Bible it actually points to like a kind of more of a sense of like sexual act dominance that was practiced at the time and does not really apply to what we think of as like loving relationships now, right? So people will make that argument, and other religious people who also say that they have access to what they think God wants will just straight up disagree with you about the orientation. They will tell you that being homosexual and having homosexual thoughts is a sin. So
Yeah.
there are people who have gone through the same well-meaning process that you have and referred to God and their faith and their people around them and come to a different conclusion from you. So I still don't see how you can claim that you have access to the objective morality and they do not.
Well, I suppose that's a good point. I mean, I would definitely challenge you on like the orientation thing. I think
You don't have to
that's pretty.
challenge me. You
Well,
can
no,
challenge me,
not
but the
you,
thing
but
is,
like challenge.
you're not going to tell me that that doesn't exist.
No, I'm not. Obviously, do people do like do that? But I would say like if when people like actually, because I do definitely believe that if people like read the Bible, there's no thought that they can come to the conclusion with the sorry, with the what am I trying to say? Like the orientation thing. But
It's a,
I do agree with you that there are a lot of interpretations of the morality of the Bible, and people do come to different conclusions. But I'd say there's still the general conclusion of we can still come to general conclusions based off the Bible. And I understand that's not objective morality, and that, yeah,
Right. But
yeah,
it still brings me
go
back to
ahead.
the same question. And this is only one simple example. I mean, and then vegetarianism. Is it immoral to eat meat? Right? And some people will say, I mean, that's not even mentioned in the Bible at all, but some people will claim, a moral position on that, like a religious moral position on that, and say that eating meat is immoral. And they've come to that conclusion, and they've done that by trying to access what they think is the objective morality. This is getting to my point, is like, if one exists, I don't think we have access to it, because there's no way to true up all these different opinions. They're just opinions on what the correct morality is.
Right, but I think the overall message of the Bible, which comes to a conclusion, is no. Listen. It's that we all sin. We're all lawbreakers. So at the end of the day,
Irrelevant.
we all make. How is that irrelevant?
Because I'm not talking about whether or not we are breaking the law. I'm talking about whether or not we have access to the objective morality. Having access to the objective morality would necessarily mean that we are able to have a moral question and find the objectively correct answer. Like, it doesn't depend if we are personally sinners or not, if we do occasionally do the wrong thing. The point is, if we have access to that objective morality, then that means we must be able to get that answer.
I suppose that's a good point.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a good point. But
Then explain to me how we have an objective morality then, or how we have access to that.
I mean, I guess I know. I guess you're right. People just do interpret it differently. But I will say, no. I think you're right. I guess you're right. I think you're right on that. People do
Well,
interpret things differently.
you know what? You know what? SpaceLogic, though. Look, it sounds like this is just. I've just given you a new thought. Don't commit to this now. Just like consider it. We've talked before.
Yeah.
I would really appreciate, actually, because this is kind of my interest topic at the moment. Oh, little crown. Oh, that was fun. Thanks. Do you know how to pronounce it? But thanks for that. I did see it. But anyway, SpaceLogic, no, take it away thinking about it and come back to me if you have further thoughts, because maybe you'll think of something that you didn't think of and you have a different point you could bring back. And I'd love to continue talking about it.
All right.
Sound good?
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
Right then. Okay. Now get the hell out of my live, because I'm so very angry. Actually, that was... How often, actually, in a live, do you get down to a point of, oh, you know what? Actually, you're right. So that's fun. 45 minutes later. This is the worst thing. I've learned how to take off a sweater in public. You pull it up a little bit in the back, and then you pull down your shirt, and you lean your shirt against whatever you're leaning against. And that reduces the chance that you lift up your sweater and you have your big fat belly flopping around in front of everybody. So, I've managed it okay, apparently. Oh, wait a minute. SpaceLogic, you're back already? Shit. Man, you must have something important to say. All right, I gotta have you back in.
Hello, Greg.
Hello.
I'm back.
Yes, you are. I honestly did not expect you back this quickly. But
No, that's fine. I did some thinking about it. I think you are right. I got to admit, I think you're definitely right.
Okay.
But I will say that maybe I agree more with your second point, where it says that we don't have access to it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I think it definitely has to exist. Because if it doesn't, well, I mean, number one, it's just like that's just bad in my worldview. Like, if we just didn't have objective morality, I think it probably does exist. But you make a really excellent point with people just think different. Think there's so many different interpretations of the Bible, and you're definitely right about that. There's no way around that. So,
All right. Well, then, I mean, is that basically what you came back for?
well, no. I also want to say, do you think it's more accurate? Would you say it's more accurate to say maybe that like there might not be objective morality, but you say that you can ground your morality in religion.
Ground. What do we mean? See, that's people say
Like,
this so much.
okay, all right. So let's say ground my morality. So, for example, if like you killed somebody, or you decided not to kill somebody, and I decided not to kill somebody, and you got asked the question, "Oh, why didn't you kill that person?" You would say, because it's what I think, like a subjective opinion or whatever. But I would say, "Oh, I didn't kill this person because thou shalt not kill," right?
Right.
So would you say that it's because I'm not getting my morality from my subjective worldview over religion or some kind of rule book or some kind of something? So would you say I can ground my morality in that? Would you say that's more accurate to say?
No, the issue is, okay, then we have agreed that we don't have anything we refer to and get the correct moral answers to and be sure that we are objectively correct, right? So what that says to me is that everyone's morality is subjective, but definitionally, because that means if we don't have direct access to that objective morality, then that means we're all making decisions about morality. Now, people who have religion have a certain framework, a certain understanding that you have like kind of like top line points that you say that God has given you. I don't agree with that, but it's fine. You have that framework that makes sense to you. And that's what you think of as grounding, because you have a reference manual that you can look at and say, these are the rules as I understand them, at least for these topics, right?
Yeah, but that's what I would say I define it as.
I know, but the thing is like, all that means is that is a certain framework of knowledge that you accept as things that are wrong, and that has no difference to me, in a logical sense, from like, say a country who is was never exposed to religion but is run by humans who are communal animals and have an interest in not harming each other, and also need to live together and have a sense of right and wrong. That sense of right and wrong to me does not have to come from God. I think it comes from evolutionary processes that has given us, imbued in us, the idea that it is better not to harm other people of our species because that's how we survive. And that's where I think morality comes from. But you, like, people who say things like, how do you ground it, do not accept that as grounding. But I think the idea of not harming other people is largely where morality comes from.
Well, I think the reason that people don't accept that as grounding is because in the Bible it says that the law is written on our hearts. So essentially, we all technically understand that we probably shouldn't hurt people. So I'd say that's probably why people don't consider it grounding, because it's just based off your subjective worldview in the end.
But that's the problem, is that even if it's based off a subjective worldview, the issue is you understand that you don't have direct access to something objective anyway, and it's still, all it is that you have a certain set of understandings that you have in common with other people that share your religion, but that doesn't mean that any of you can come down to the correct answer on all things. So that means all of you, religious or not, are still looking at a situation, feeling what you think is right or wrong, and then making a decision, like anybody does, whether they believe in your God, whether they don't believe in a God. So
yeah, I agree that it doesn't matter if somebody's religious or not. They can still be like morally correct. I don't think because you're an atheist or other people are atheists, oh no, you're always going to be a terrible person or something. No, I don't agree with that. I think I agree with that. You can definitely be a quote unquote good person if you're an atheist or whatever. But I will say that if objective morality does exist, there is some way to at least get close to it. And I think the only way, well, maybe not the only way. I guess you're right. Maybe not the only way to get close to it. But I'd say if we want to get close to it, then religion is the best way. I mean, if we don't have access to it, it's true. Then, but if just because we don't have access to it, doesn't not to say that it doesn't exist. It just means we can get closer to it. And I think that's with interpretation.
There's a bunch of that I agree with, but I do feel like if you're willing to come far enough to say that atheists can be moral, then that means that you should probably understand that atheists have their own process to go through in which they can decide which things are moral and which are not, and that they can still be good people. I mean, unless you want to claim that there is no way for an atheist to be as good as a religious person.
No, no, definitely not.
Well, then atheists
They're
have
better
their
than
own
religious
process that
people.
they can go through to be as moral as a religious person, which only means it is not necessary to have direct access to that religious objective framework to be as moral as a religious person.
To be as moral, yes, but okay. Well, I think you're kind of an exception to the rule because the atheists I talk to are a lot more like, oh, because objective morality doesn't exist. I feel like if that's your worldview, then what is like there's really no like motivation to do right by other people,
I
right?
mean,
Why
of
don't you
course
just live
there
your life?
is, because you live in a world and you want people to do
Disagree.
well. Again, like I think largely the basis of morality is actually an evolutionary trait to not harm other people of the same species, because that's how we learn to survive in a world in which, like, because this animal in the jungle is doing no good against like a tiger or a half aware orangutan. It's like we simply don't have the ability, and the only way we survived was to understand that we had to not harm each other in order to be together, right? And we can put a lot of stories around that and say that, like, God gave us stuff, but I don't think the Bible was necessary to tell us that it's bad to unalive other people, because it's like, even like the codes of Hammurabi were written like centuries before the Bible, and Hammurabi said you should not like unalive other people. And so it never required God to tell us that. And even if you say it was written on our hearts, Hammurabi had that locked down like well before the Bible was written. Like, so that kind of thing. You can formalize morality, but it's still going to come down people deciding, and the fact that people can come to those decisions without having a religious backing for it.
Yeah, I agree. They can come to that, but like what? So for example, like like a dictator like King Jong Un or something, he basically enslaves his entire population. Why is what he does wrong? It under oh, there's no objective morality. It's everything's just subjective. Why is what he does wrong? Why is it wrong?
We would
I
agree that
just
what he does is wrong. Some
yeah,
people
we
that
would
exist,
agree.
some people, yeah, I know, because that's the society that we live in, that, subjecting people in ways against their will is considered a bad thing. But, because he has the power to do it, and that's why he does it. It doesn't mean that it's right from our point of view, but I am sure there are people in that country who are convinced that he is divine and that whatever he does is correct, and they have that sense of morality about it. Yes, because morality is subjective. Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, everyone always brings up these extreme examples, but that's why I brought up like veganism, right? There is a
Yeah.
lot of India, like Hindus, not all of them, but there's a lot of them who think that eating meat is bad, and that's their moral decision. And then would we say that they are wrong for that? We probably wouldn't. But it's because it's not a hot button topic. It's not the kind of thing that is obviously wrong. You have to think about it and make questions. It makes you understand that morality is subjective. But they would say for sure that eating meat is immoral. And then, but then the example would be from their point of view. If you and I were Indian and having this discussion, and then we would say, oh, well, look at America. They eat meat. What makes it moral for them? Right?
Yeah,
It's
you're
the
right.
same argument, just from a different point of view. It only illustrates that morality is subjective and based on like your situation, like where you live.
But you don't find it frustrating at all that you can't really say that what these people do is wrong. Like you can't really say that what a rapist does is wrong.
Yeah, we can. Of course, we can,
But
because
it
we
doesn't mean
decide.
anything.
But
But it
the
doesn't
thing,
mean anything.
it doesn't. What?
It doesn't mean anything
Of
if you
course,
say
of
it.
course it does, because we understand
Okay.
that that kind of activity is causing grave harm to someone. And again, in my opinion, morality is largely based around whether or not you do harm to other people. So that's why, again, people bring up the really hot, the top line, like you said, like North Korea, sexual assault, mustache man. I'm using the TikTok coded terms. It's like, because then you say, oh well, how can they say it's right? Yeah, these large, upper level issues of obvious wrong they're going to, how can you say it's wrong? Because we can all say it's wrong, because we can all say that doing violence against someone against their consent is wrong. But now
We
great.
can't all say that though, because again, obviously people disagree. There's murderers, and
Yes, I know, because it's subjective, and then we have ways of making sure that the people that are against that go against the clear morality are have consequences. The weird thing about talking about this is that there are so many different slices of Christianity that have different ideas of what is moral and what is not. And you will largely agree on the top level issues about death and sexual stuff, but yes, so will everybody. It doesn't matter if you have religion or not. Largely, the population will agree with you that these main things are bad, but that's not all morality is. Morality is, what do you do with this $10 bill that you found dropped in front of a supermarket? What's the correct thing to do here? Then there's the trolley problem. Do I flip the switch or not? Right? All of these questions exist. All of these answers will be different, whether you're religious or not, Christian or not, Hindu or not. Everybody within the same religion, different sects of the religion, other religions without religions, are all going to have different ideas of what is correct and what is not. And you can't say that there is one objective standard for it, because I can see, just looking at Wikipedia, how many different flavors of Christianity there are, and how much all of them will disagree on questions of morality. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what we atheists say. Us atheists watching Christians from the outside say, man, you people do not have this worked out. You just can't agree amongst yourselves. And so I don't understand why this question comes to me when the question should be asked of Christians in general.
well, I mean, like I said, I still think it does exist. We just can't access it. But
Okay, then you came back up to agree with me.
well, yeah. I like I did at the beginning. I do agree with you.
I know. I liked it as a punchline. But then the next step for me is saying, okay, great. If we agree that it doesn't exist, then that just means that religious people also have a subjective morality. Because even if they sit and they pray on it and they ask their pastor about it, it still means that they have to come to a decision that they come to on their own. And you're asking me, how can I do that? How can I accept that there isn't an objective standard? You've just told me that Christian people do exactly the same thing, but they just...
No, it's not exactly the same thing. I agree. It is subjective, right? We can't access it. Sure. There's no real objective morality because we can't obtain it, but we can still ground it. We can get closer to it.
You have a different set of rules and ideas and a structure that suggests to you which things are right and wrong. But your process is the same. Your process is exactly the same.
I would argue that you don't. I would argue that, as an atheist, you just don't.
This
is where we just disagree, I suppose.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it's not to say that you can't be a morally right person as an atheist, but when you see somebody rape somebody, right? Why is what they do wrong?
Yes, I can say, because of the significant and awful physical and mental harm that they're doing to that person without their consent. If you want to say that, that's how I ground it. I don't really like the whole grounding terminology, but I'll tell you, that's where I ground it. It's a question of harm and consent. And I feel like there is a whole lot of moral questions that you can answer on that basis. Certainly, the last 7 commandments, depending on whose Bible you use. If you take out the God stuff, out the non-God commandments, no, see, that's not true, because the commandments include thought crime, and I would not include thought crime in something that's immoral. Some of the commandments, I will say, are covered by the idea of harm and consent. And then you could go down quite a lot of it after that. And it is the way where I am comfortable in saying that a lot of things in the Bible are immoral, in my opinion, because they involve harm and lack of consent. That's how I ground it, if you want to know. And I feel like that's a pretty valid and useful way of doing it, actually. And but in the end, I feel like that covers a lot of morality. And I also feel like it doesn't cover all of morality, but I also think that no structure of morality will cover everything, and you always have to make decisions. And again, that's what I'm saying, is that you might have a certain set of rules that you feel like it's guided by.
But you always have to make decisions. Yeah, sure.
But the process is still going to be the same. Yeah,
like the trolley problem. I agree with that. We will have to make a decision.
I'm fine with that. We don't fully agree, but I'm so happy with having this discussion with you, and then you coming back and trying to clarify. I honestly thought you were going to come back in a couple of days, but thanks for taking an extra bite at the apple. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
I very much respect what you do, and also all of the other like deconstructionists on this platform, because I think us having these conversations is really important. Not just for like, I think just for everybody involved, but especially for me, because it really leads me to like truly examine like what I believe.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm gonna one. I kind of balk. I don't want to say I'm a deconstructionist. I just have the conversations. But aside from that, you weren't here. I had a really bad conversation with somebody last night who honestly and for real pissed me off more than I had ever been in any of these lives. And it was not a great experience. But I spent 12 hours just having to sit in my brain, and then in the end, I realized, you know what? What happened is that he made me angry about things that I realized that I need to be clearer on myself. And in the end, the experience has actually improved the things that I think about the things I was arguing with him about. So it's one of those things. I would be just as happy to learn that my efforts and my discussion with someone has led them closer to their faith. I'd be happy with that.
Absolutely. Like that's happened to me, just like listening, not just on you, but just other people. Like I've genuinely had to go back and look, because some of the things in the Bible are pretty bizarre. I will not deny that. But I had to actually look back and look at what they said and justify it my own way.
Literally give me goosebumps, man. So I'm very pleased. And
no,
man,
I am too.
This is going to have to go on YouTube. I really appreciate this conversation, and thanks for that.
Yeah. All right. See you, Greg.
All right, great. See you.
Maybe I'll be back. Talk again.
Right then. See you.
See you.
I honestly needed that. I'm actually feeling a little weepy. Yeah. After last night, I really needed that. There. Outro.